If you're a Blender beginner, then shading issues like this one are the main source of your frustration. This video will help you understand and fix all of them in only a few minutes. I remember the first time I opened Blender feeling so lost among the UI and all the options. Then when I started modeling, I ran into all sorts of issues, most of which were shading related. I had no idea what was causing them, and more importantly, I had no clue how to fix them. In this video, we will return back to the basics of topology, geometry and shading so you can understand the what's, the whys and the hows. Now, if you would like to dive a bit deeper into the basics of Blender, UI, modeling, rendering and so on, we have a fantastic free course for you called Jumpstart Hard Surface in Blender, which will provide you with very strong foundations in only a few hours of well-structured and easy to understand content. The course has been downloaded by over 50,000 people and the link is in the video description. As I said, the course is free, so enjoy. Now, here are the main causes of shading issues in Blender. Number 1, bent topology. Number 2, uneven topology. Number 3, overlapping geometry. Number 4, non-manifold geometry. Number 5, weighted normal modifier without a bevel. Number 6, modifier stack order. Number 7, Autosmooth. Number 8, custom split normals. Number 9, sharp edges on bevels. And number 10, missing bevel weight on edges. But before we will talk about all of these, let's jump into Blender and let's define what is geometry and what is topology. Then I will show you why the shading issues occur and how to fix them. Let's go. Before we start talking about issues with shading, we need to talk about topology and geometry. Topology, basically, it's polygons, and polygons are split into 3 groups: triangles, quads, and angles. Triangles have 3 verts, 3 edges, quads have 4, and angles have 5 and above. Okay, so if I go here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or more. These are angles, and that's it. Now, geometry is what creates topology, so verts, edges, and faces. So if I'm gonna go to the sphere, which is made of, small quads and a lot of verts and a lot of edges. That's geometry. So geometry creates topology, but shading problems can stem from topology issues and geometry issues. So let's talk about first topology issues. So the first one's gonna be bent topology. Now, bent topology is quite interesting because it will explain quite a few things that you may not even know. First of all, triangles cannot be bent. It's impossible to bend a triangle. No matter what you do with the vert, where you're going to place it, this face is going to be always flat. This is why game engines use triangles as a base of the mesh, right? The basic topology. Now, quads can be bent and n-gons can be bent. And let me show you. If I'm going to go here and grab this vert and move it up, you can clearly see that this face is bent, right? But to illustrate it a bit better, I'm gonna go to cavity, turn it on, and change screen to world. Okay, now you can see that there's a crease here. N-gon's gonna be even worse because, there's more shit to be bent. So, it's gonna be really nasty, right? So, when someone tells you that you need correct topology, and they usually mean by the quads, they just don't know what the fuck they're talking about, because it's not about having all quads or all triangles or n-gons. No, you need to have a specific quality of topology to create good topology for the purpose of your model. So for example, if I'm gonna have a bent surface, I need to have topology small enough and consistent enough to create even topology that creates good shading. So good topology doesn't equal quads, it equals topology that fits the purpose and gets the job done, which means creates nice shading. Now let me show you in practice, okay? So I'm gonna grab a cylinder here, all right? Not this shit, cylinder, where are you? Where are you, you bastard? There you go. So let's grab that. And you see that it's made of quads except for the top faces, but that doesn't matter because it's flat surface, and on flat surface, whatever topology you have, it doesn't matter because you're always going to be flat. But what we're going to be talking about is the sides. These are all quads, they're all even, and they're all consistent, meaning they all spread evenly, right? The distance between them and the size of them is all equal. That is why, let me just turn off this nasty, there we go, shading. That is why it's all smooth and beautiful. But what will happen if I'm going to move this vert just a little bit? Boom, that happens, right? And it's all quads, right? It's all quads, but they're not of the same size and they're not consistent. And that's the problem, okay? And this is why the shading breaks, because, you know, the geometry on the topology is moved. And it just, you know, messes things up, all right? Now, these things are really easy to fix. As a quick bonus, I can tell you that you can go here to Preferences and install one of the Blender add-ons called the Loop Tools. Just go to Add-ons, type Loop here and enable it, save Preferences. And then what you can do is Alt-click this, then right-click, Loop Tools, and Circle, okay? It's gonna fix it. Now the problem is going to be uneven topology, yeah? So I move this one in here, right? And watch this, you see this flat shading here? That's because the consistency of size was changed. This can be also easily fixed by Loop Tools, right click, Loop Tools, and Space, which will space all these verts evenly. And you're back to square one. All right, so this would cover bend topology and uneven topology. So again, if you have uneven topology or bend topology, there's a good chance that on a curved surface you will have a shading problem, unless polygons are super small. And I'm going to show you this on an example with a boolean, okay? So Shift DX, and I'm going to rotate this. I'm going to scale this, okay? And I'm going to boolean that, okay? So Control minus on a numpad with the bool tool add-on enabled. And now you can see clearly here that we have a shitstorm going on. And the reason for that, let me just apply this, okay, so you can see better what's happening, all right? Just delete that. So what's happening here is now we got n-gons. And the n-gons themselves are not the problem. The problem is that they are bent, okay? They are being bent because there's one more vert here in the middle. So their size is too big, right? For the curvature, their size is too big, and that's why they get bent, and that's why you get shading problems. So what you can do here, you can isolate it, okay, by, for example, running a loop. So what I could do is grab a knife here, and press A, and just simply run a loop here. And you can clearly see that we now isolated this top and the bottom. And the smaller topology you get, the less shading problems you're gonna have. Let me show you. If I'm going to grab a cylinder, right, and I'm going to increase this to 100 verts, okay, and I'm going to do the same thing, all right? So I'm going to shade it smooth, right? And I'm going to Shift D this and RY 90. I'm going to scale this, move it here, and Control minus, and I'm going to apply this, right? So let's apply the boolean, right? Watch the shading on this one is much more clean, and the reason for that is because the faces are smaller, which means the bending happens on a smaller surface, which is why it's less pronounced. I hope it makes sense. So the denser topology, the easier to control it, okay? In terms of shading, right? Just more work, but better control. All right, so let's move on to overlapping geometry. Overlapping geometry is a really common problem. And let me just show you very quickly how to create overlapping geometry. So let's say we have this kind of a situation, and we're going to add a bevel to it, right? So I'm going to add a bevel to it, and I'm going to lower the size of the bevel like this, right? Okay. What will happen if I'm going to turn off this clamp overlap, which is basically like a safety guard for beveling, and I'm going to crank this thing up, okay? Look, see that? The bevel is literally overshooting on itself, okay? If I'm going to go to wireframe, watch what happens, watch. The bevel is increasing, and boom, overshoots on itself and flips itself inside out, which is why you see this red kind of red color here, because it simply shows the flipped geometry. We're going to be talking about flipped geometry in a bit. Geometry basically has two sides, okay, outer and inner, and the inner side, which is red, is being flipped outside. If I remove this face here, you'll see everything inside is red, so that red got flipped inside out, and this is why we have the problem. it kind of bevel went underneath the edge and flipped it. So that's where overlapping geometry can actually cause problems. Next one is non-manifold geometry, and that can be disconnected geometry, duplicates, and like I said, flipped faces. So this would be one of the issues, okay? So if I remove this bevel here and, for example, grab a regular cube, okay, and I'm gonna flip the face, so go to edit mode and then Alt-N and flip it. Now the inner side of this face is outside. So if I'm gonna add a bevel here, see that happens because bevel wants to wrap around this face, but since it's flipped, it's going up, yeah, makes sense? So this is a very common issue when you work with booleans, you know, or create some crazy operations in Blender. So you need to flip the face. So either select everything and Shift N, or what you can do is Alt N and just flip outside, or just flip, okay? If you want to see flip geometry, I would suggest you go here and turn on the face orientation, and then go to preferences, go to themes, and then where is it? 3D viewport, and here under face orientation front, reduce the alpha to 0, so you're not gonna be seeing this nasty kind of a crazy blue color, okay? See what I mean? That's correct face orientation, but you don't want to see that. You want to only see the red one. So if you reduce this to 0, save prefs, you're not going to be able to see the crazy blue one. Next issue is going to be weighted normal without bevel, or bevel without weighted normal. That is really common. Basically, when you add bevel to anything, you want to run weighted normal modifier to flex the faces. If you look here closely, there's kind of like a warping effect happening. What Blender is trying to do is trying to average this face in between the bevels. Every face, every edge, and every vert has a normal. It's kind of like a line, perpendicular line to the element. So if I go here to edit mode and turn them on, this is a face normal, and this is I think edge normal, and the vert normal is going to be coming, you know, kind of like at 45 degrees, perpendicular to the average sort of a position of the vert, right? Let me just apply this bevel and I'm going to show you something. So now you can see that very clearly, okay? You see this normal is being kind of pointing upwards. It's not really perpendicular, but it's kind of shifted up. So the angle is, you know, different than 90 degrees, but this one is 90. So what Blender is trying to do is trying to average between these two normals, which is why you see this kind of warping. So what you want to do is you want to add a weighted normal modifier, which will flex everything, okay? And the problem is gone. So the rule here is not to run weighted normal without bevel, or bevel without weighted normal. And weighted normal modifier should be always at the bottom of the stack, okay? Now, speaking of modifiers, the modifier order is really important. If I, for example, add a bevel here, right, and I'm going to, you know, crank it up, and then I'm going to right click and shade Autosmooth, and I'm going to add weighted normals, right? Everything is peachy, but look what happens when I'm going to flip the order, right? It's just getting fucked again. So you need to remember that order of modifier is essential in Blender, which is why we're using hard ups and box cutter, because it's just bloody easy. They're going to sort this modifier order for you automatically when you work, so you don't have to think about it. And by the way, a link to hard ups and box cutter add-on bundle is in the video description. So there you go. This would be modifier stack order, and this is really, really important. Now, if I, for example, add a boolean on top of it, so I'm gonna grab a cube, right, move it somewhere here and kind of cut it, and I'm gonna keep this boolean at the bottom or move it above weighted normal but below the bevel, this is what happens, okay? So you can get all kinds of shading problems coming from the order of the modifiers, because now first you need to cut, then you need to bevel, and then you need to apply weighted normals. That's the proper order of modifiers in Blender. Next thing we're going to talk about is Autosmooth. Autosmooth is really important, and you also have to shade your mesh smooth, because if you don't, you're going to get this nasty kind of a faceting. So let me just turn off these normals. So if I'm going to bevel this, right, you see you're going to get this faceted look. What you want to do is you want to shade it smooth. Now what Blender is trying to do now is trying to average all the faces into a ball, okay? What you want to do now is you want to tell Blender where you want sharp edges to be, at what angle, okay? An edge is considered sharp. So what we want to do is go here and either shade smooth and then turn auto smooth here on the normals, right? Or, okay, what you want to do is basically just click Shade Autosmooth, which will do both. So it will shade smooth and it's going to add Autosmooth. Now, this angle here is really important, okay? What it means is that every single edge above 30 degrees is going to be sharp, right? If I, for example, move it to 91, you see that it's not going to work because all the 90-degree edges, they're going to be smooth again, right? If I'm going to go 89, that's going to work because all these edges here are 90 degrees. You see how it works. So by default is 30. Now, why is it important? Let's say that one of these angles here is really shallow, okay? Like this. And you see that this angle of 30 degrees is simply not catching it. What you could do, you could lower this Autosmooth really to some small value and it's gonna catch it, right? See, now it's sharp. But if you have bevels running on your mesh, this is what's gonna happen, okay? So that's not the best idea. There's a different way of doing it, actually 2 ways. One of them would be to go to edit mode, click on the edge, right click and mark sharp, which will basically force a sharp edge on this mesh. Another way would be to add a bevel that's running on a bevel weighted sort of a limit method, and I'm going to show you this in a minute. So let me show you how it works. So if I'm, for example, add a bevel here, okay, so I'm going to add a bevel here and I'm going to add 3 segments, and I'm going to make it smaller, all right, kind of smaller like this, and maybe let's it, I don't know, 6 segments. Okay, cool. And you can see that, and let's add the weighted normals too, just to flex it. Okay, cool. You can clearly see that this edge hasn't been caught. It's just not beveled. If I wanted to bevel this edge, okay, let me just unmark it, so clear sharp. What I want to do is I want to duplicate this bevel, okay, and change the limit method here from angle to weight. And now I'm going to go here, grab this edge, right click, and here you can add bevel weight, okay, so edge bevel weight, and move your mouse to the right or just press 1 and enter. And this will basically tell Blender that this edge should be beveled according to settings in this bevel modifier. So I can make it bigger, smaller, right? Adjust it. Now you got 2 bevels running on your mesh, okay? So that's how you can fix this shading problem here with a bevel weighted modifier. Now, when you remove this bevel weighted edge here, so you're going to remove the bevel weight from this edge. So we're going to go to bevel weight and -1 and enter. You're basically going to go back to an edge that it's not beveled and it's not sharp. So this face is going to be bent, which may cause some shading problems. So when you're running a bevel that's set to limit method weight, make sure that all edges that are not falling into sharpness angle here for Autosmooth are marked with bevel weight. Otherwise, you're gonna lose the bevel. Okay. Now another one is custom split normals. This is actually quite interesting. So if I'm going to have a cube and I'm gonna add a bevel to it, and I'm going to shade Autosmooth, right? And I'm gonna add a weighted normal modifier. Okay. You can see that under Autosmooth here, everything is fine. All the faces are flexed. Everything is peachy. But when I'm going to apply these modifiers, all right, so I'm going to apply the bevel and apply the weighted normal, my Autosmooth is going to be grayed out. And the reason for that is because now, since we applied weighted normal modifier, we applied custom split normal data to the mesh. And if you go to geometry data, here you can see we have custom split normals data, and you can clean it. This could cause all sorts of problems. So what you want to do is you want to clear the custom split normal data, and then we clean up this weighted normal modifier that was applied. You want to apply a modifier on top of it, and everything is going to be fine. Next problem is going to be sharp edges on bevels. So remember this situation where we had this very shallow angle here like this, and we marked it sharp to force a sharp edge in here, okay? So now watch what happens when I'm going to run a bevel here, right? See, I'm going to split these sharp edges into 2, and you're going to get this occasionally, this kind of a nasty, can't really see it in here. Maybe if I change the mud cup to something different. You see that? There's kind of like a nasty edge here going on. You can barely see it in here, but sometimes it's really pronounced. Maybe it's going to be a bit more visible here. So mark sharp and just bevel this, and let's see what happens. Okay, there we go. See that? Okay, that is really nasty. What you want to do is you want to remove this mark sharp here, so clear sharp, and it's going to solve the problem. Okay, so when you see something like this, this is usually caused by a sharp edge on the end of the bevel. Now, as a bonus, I can tell you a few more tips. Occasionally, you may duplicate geometry and forget about it. This is, for example, very common when you duplicate a face, right click and forget about it, or even move it slightly up like this, right? And then you want to do something like a, for example, bevel modifier. So let's just run the bevel here and you see what happens. This happens, right? And you don't know what the hell is going on. The reason for that is simply duplicate geometry, so non-manifold geometry. What you want to do, you want to clean that. There's a tool for it in Blender, which is called 3D Print Toolbox. So 3D Print Toolbox, go here, install this, and it's going to be showing here on the end panel. And this is fantastic because you can check for all kinds of geometry. You can see here non-manifold edges 4, correct, because it's a quad, and you can clean it up. So you can go here and click on make manifold, and it's going to remove it. Now this doesn't always work, which is why I'm using 3 types of cleanups. Okay, one of them is going to be with this method here. The other one's going to be with machine tools. So for example, if I have a double vert like here, I'm going to subdivide the edge, and I'm going to have a rogue vert here. I can press 3 to clean it with cleanup from machine tools. You just have to enable cleanup on the preferences and the machine tools add-on, and the add-on is free, by the way, a link in the video description. Or I'm going to run a cleanup with hard ops from the Q menu. Okay, so if you have hard ops, there's an option called clean mesh. So I use all 3 to get rid of all kinds of junk on my geometry and clean it up. Generally, it's a good practice to clean your mesh as you go, because eventually stuff may pile up and you're gonna have so many issues that you're not gonna even know where to start, especially when you're a beginner and you don't know how to revert certain changes. So I would advise you to pay attention to your shading and get it sorted as soon as possible. Now, if you're running into problems, you need some help, we have a free Discord server with over 3,000 people. There's a help section over there, so if you get stuck, feel free to post some images or some GIFs. I hope this video answers all your questions that you had about shading, but if you have some more questions, let me know in the comment section, and if I see a reason good enough, I might actually run another video on this. So let me see what you guys have to say. But I think these are the most common problems that you should be running into, especially in the beginning. They should cover about 99% of problems in Blender in terms of shading. So I hope it helps you out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.